Good morning, everyone. You are watching Barnstable This Morning. I'm Sarah Colvin, and joining me in studio, I welcome our Senior Animal Control Officer, Charlie Lewis. Charlie, welcome to our studio.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for coming in today. So the weather has been hot, of course, and while it's uncomfortable for a lot of us, really uncomfortable for our pets.
Certainly is, in many areas, not just tied in the backyard in the sun. It's particularly troubling with dogs in cars and other places where they'd be better off at home.
Of course, and a lot of times, we've heard a lot about people going into stores and bringing their dog along with them, putting the dog in the car, and it gets really hot in the car, and that can be very dangerous, sometimes fatal for your animal.
That's correct. In 10 minutes, it goes up 20 degrees approximately, just from being on a semi-sunny day. It's not so much the sun that causes the heat, but it's the parking lots, and it comes up underneath through the bottom of the car.
Absolutely, and it just, we know from being here at work, you go get in your car at the end of the day, it's really hot in there, you got to crank up the air conditioning to keep it cool. So what would you recommend? Would you say people, if you're going to the grocery store, if you're going to run an errand, leave your dog at home?
Absolutely. I always suggest this time of year that basements are probably the best place to keep a dog, and let them come up and down them stairs. It's nice and cool down there. You don't have to leave them in the hot sun of the windows and things like that, where they're trapped kind of. If they can go up and down, they're much better off. Even dogs that are kept outdoors on a chain should not be out there for great lengths of time this time of year.
Absolutely, because from what I understand, dogs really can't sweat, so they can't cool themselves off.
Right. They perspire through their foot pads, and if they're on the hot ground or they're on the hot seat of a car, then it just doesn't work, and they pant. And if they can't, in a condensed area like that, by panting, it just gets that much warmer as well. So one of the big problems with dogs in cars is that everyone that is around the car, the dog will continuously bark, which only upsets it more and gets it hotter that much quicker. In a matter of an hour, they claim it'll go up 43 degrees.
Which is definitely not good for the dog. So rule number one, leave your dog at home. Don't put them in the car. If a person, say, I'm in the parking lot, I park my car, I see a dog in a car. Is there something I should do? Should I call animal control? Should I see if I can find the owner, that sort of thing?
I always recommend calling animal control right away. And that way we can respond and we can get there in a timely manner. If you wait 15 or 20 minutes, and no one comes out to that car, then you call us. Now it could be as much as an hour before we can actually get there.
Exactly.
This is a big town, 62 square miles, so something happens, Stop and Shop parking lot in Marston's Mills, then something happens at the Cape Cod Mall, or even at the hospital. Then we, that response time with the traffic becomes very difficult.
Absolutely.
I would note that, like at Cape Cod Hospital, the security people down there do monitor the parking lot, and if there is a car in the park, they'll actually bring it into their office and keep it cool. And if someone has to visit someone or an emergency basis like that, if you say something to them, they'll bring the dog in.
Oh, that's great.
So it does make it very easy in that end.
What kind of signs of heat stroke or how would I know if, for instance, my dog was in the hot house or I had what do you look for?
When they're not panting.
When they're not panting?
Yeah, when they're not panting it's not a good sign. You'll see their eyes start to roll. They'll become somewhat discolored even. They'll just lay completely flat, be not responsive.
Exactly.
So there's a few signs. And it happens so quick that it's almost too late when them signs develop. Humans, I believe the core temperature gets about 106 degrees, we probably would die from it. A dog, on the other hand, you're probably talking a little bit more. Their average temperature can be 104, I believe, so you get up a little bit higher.
Right.
But it's still, if you have that situation, you want to use water bottles that are cool. You don't want to necessarily drown the dog with water. You want to cool them eventually.
Exactly.
It's much easier.
cool them down. But I think a good rule of thumb, obviously, don't leave your dog in the car. And if you do at home, perhaps leave the air conditioner on for the dogs during the day, fans, things like that. Make sure they're comfortable.
Right. Anytime the temperature is above 75, if it's difficult for us, it's that much more difficult for the dog or even a cat. It's not good to leave cats in the vehicles or in the hot sun either.
Exactly. Well, hopefully the heat wave will be over soon. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the beach. Obviously, most of the beaches here in Barnstable, you can't bring your dogs during the summer months. You can bring them to Sandy Neck. But when it's hot like this, it can be dangerous for dogs on the beach.
I always stop my conversation at beaches with a couple of points. And the first is that we as humans always seem to wear sandals or shoes. And why do we do that?
Hot.
Because everything is hot. But when you take a dog into salt water and they come out, they have all that sand between their toes and everything. And the next thing you know, they're sitting on the hot sand or laying on the hot sand and they're licking all that stuff between their toes. If salt is not good for us and sand is not good for us to ingest, it's certainly not any good for the dog as well. But the other factor at beaches that people don't realize is sand fleas are huge. In marsh areas, we have tons and tons of these deer ticks everywhere. This year especially, I've never seen so many deer ticks as I have. And we're bringing our dog to a spot and we're inviting all this trouble.
Exactly.
You know, it's just, and dogs, generally speaking, 2 baths a year is all they need because of the oil in their system and their coats. And if we keep washing it off, it never replenishes. The next thing you know, the dog gets hot spots. And if you're not brushing the dog on a regular basis, you're going to end up with a huge vet bill.
Right. So may want to think twice before bringing the dog to the beach. The last thing I want to talk about a little bit, conservation areas, of course. We're always looking for places to walk our dogs. And unfortunately, we've seen a lot of people walking around in conservation areas with their dogs off leash, which is really not allowed here in the town of Barnstable.
That's correct. And in fact, most places on Cape Cod, you have to have the dog on a leash. And I always suggest to people, yeah, okay, you're out there in the conservation area. If you want to have a 20-foot rope and you hear somebody coming, you can reel the dog in close. When it's hot, the dogs become irritable. They don't want to be out there any more than, what I want to be chasing them out there. Mountain biking and things like that, hiking, the dog is better off in a nice, cool spot. If they don't have a lot of water while they're out there and hydrating, they're going to be irritable. So a stranger comes walking up or riding a bicycle fast by, the next thing you know, the dog is jumping up and we have a bite.
Not going to be a happy camper.
It seems in the last 3 weeks our bites have gone up 75%.
Really?
Yeah. It happens every year at this time, and it's just because we don't think. Our dogs are not irritable. Yeah, I mean, they're irritable this time of year because of the heat. So if we put them in a negative position, they're going to react accordingly.
Exactly.
Much easier to leave them at home or they got to be on a leash, keep them close.
Absolutely. Well, Charlie, thank you so much for stopping by and sharing this information. We've got to make sure to keep our dogs and cats and all sorts of other animals safe during the summer months.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.